Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something a little different this time, Verity.
Oh, yeah. This one, it definitely takes you for a ride.
It does. It gets pretty dark.
Hmm.
So it's a psychological thriller,
Hmm.
which we know Colleen Hoover for her, tearjerker
Yeah. All
romances.
right,
But
exactly.
but this one takes a sharp turn. What did you think of that shift in genre for her?
Well, I think, she pulls it off really well. I mean, she builds this atmosphere of suspense, right from the beginning. You're
Yeah.
just kind of drawn in. You're put in the shoes of Lowen, right?
Yeah.
She's this struggling writer,
Yeah.
and she gets this like crazy opportunity to basically finish this book series by this really famous author, Verity Crawford.
Who's had this terrible accident, right?
Yeah.
So she's not able to.
Right. She's completely incapacitated.
Yeah, yeah.
So Lowen's supposed to go through her notes and, try to piece together the ending of this series.
And she has to live at their house too, which is
Yeah, that's where things get.
creepy. The whole thing's a little creepy. And that's where she finds this like hidden autobiography.
Oh, yeah, that manuscript. Talk about a game changer.
Right. And it's not just any autobiography. It's like Verity's confessing all these really dark, disturbing things, like things about her own family.
Hmm.
I mean, it makes you question, like, everything you thought you knew about her.
Right. Is she a victim? Is she a manipulator? I mean, you're just constantly questioning.
And the way it's written, too, it's all from Lowen's point of view. So you're like, is she reliable?
Exactly, exactly. You're in her head the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing her doubts, her fears, everything. And then there's Jeremy. Oh, Jeremy.
The husband, right.
Yes, Verity's husband. And he's dealing with so much. He's grieving the loss of his daughters. He's taking care of his injured wife.
Hmm. I felt so much for him at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, as you get deeper into the story, you start to wonder about his motives, too.
Oh, totally. Like, everyone in this book has this aura of suspicion around them. It's like Colleen Hoover is intentionally playing with that moral ambiguity.
Right.
Like nobody's completely innocent. Nobody's completely guilty. It's all very, very gray.
And Lowen's drawn to him, too, right? Which adds this whole other layer to it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, is she really attracted to him or is it just the situation? They're both going through this intense experience together.
I think I kept going back and forth like, is this real?
Yeah.
Or is she just getting caught up in everything?
Right. And that's what makes it so compelling. You're constantly analyzing their relationship,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's genuine and what's manipulation. Because Verity, even though she's physically absent for most of the book, her presence is everywhere.
Her shadow's over everything. It's like Lowen's getting sucked into this web of Verity's secrets, and we're right there with her, trying to untangle it all.
Yeah. Uh-uh.
What stood out to you about Lowen?
I think for me, she represents the reader in a lot of ways. We're dropped into this bizarre situation just like she is. And we're trying to make sense of it
Yeah.
just like she is. So her reactions, her confusion, even her attraction to Jeremy, I think it all mirrors how we might respond if we were in her shoes.
And there's so many moments that just catch you off guard. Like
Yeah.
when Lowen first finds that manuscript,
Oh, yeah.
and those weird interactions with Verity
Mhm.
and the things Verity writes in that autobiography, it's like this slow burn of tension.
Yes. And Colleen Hoover, she uses these moments so well
Yeah.
to keep you on the edge of your seat. You're constantly wondering, is this really happening? Is Verity telling the truth? Is Lowen losing it?
Right. And the house itself, it's almost like another character,
Right.
right? It's so isolated, and there's this feeling of secrets lurking everywhere.
Absolutely. It's like this pressure cooker of suspense, and you can just feel it building and building.
And then there's the lake, too. It's so
Yeah.
calm on the surface,
Oh, yeah.
but you get the sense that there's something dark underneath.
Like something could just erupt at any moment, and it's a perfect metaphor for the characters and the whole atmosphere of the story.
And then that ending, I don't want to give anything away, but it just throws you for a loop. It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Yeah.
And it's like, were we just as manipulated as Lowen was?
That's the brilliance of it, isn't it? Colleen Hoover uses that unreliable narrator to keep you guessing until the very last page.
It's like she's challenging us to figure out what's real and what's not, and to question, who we choose to believe and why. It's pretty powerful stuff.
I think, at its core, Verity is about the power of deception.
Yeah.
And how easily we can be drawn into someone else's narrative, even if it's not the whole truth.
Yeah. And how our own fears and desires can cloud our judgment.
Exactly. And that makes it all the more unsettling because it makes you think, how well do I really know the people in my own life?
That's a great point.
Mm.
We're all telling stories, aren't we? And sometimes those stories are more fiction than fact.
Mm-hmm. Definitely food for thought there. I think we need to unpack this a little bit more.
I think so, too. Let's take a deeper look at some of the key moments and the symbolism in this book
Yeah.
that really drive home those themes. I think those details are what make it so captivating and so disturbing.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, it's like we're right there with her, trying to put the pieces together. But every time you think you've got it figured out, there's
Mm.
another twist,
Mm.
another layer of deception. And that setting, that house, it just adds to the whole feeling of unease.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's like this character in itself,
Mm-hmm.
this creepy old house, isolated, full of secrets. Do you think the house was a reflection of like Verity's state of mind?
I think so. It's almost like the lines between reality and delusion start to blur within those walls.
Yeah, yeah.
And not just for Verity, but for Lowen, too.
That's what I was thinking. Because Lowen's dealing with her own stuff from her past, right?
Right, she has that traumatic experience in her childhood that really messed her up.
Yeah.
So she's already coming into this situation with a lot of baggage.
And that makes you question, like, how much of what she's seeing is actually happening
Exactly.
and how much of it is her own, paranoia or whatever.
That's the genius of the unreliable narrator, right? You never quite know if you can trust what you're reading.
And then you've got Jeremy, too, who is just such a complicated character.
Oh, yeah, he really is.
On the surface, he seems like this grieving husband devoted to taking care of Verity.
Mm-hmm.
But there are these moments where you see this other side to him.
Yeah, like flashes of anger,
Yeah.
resentment. And you start to wonder, what's he really thinking? What's he hiding?
Did you ever trust him? Like, fully trust him?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I think that's what makes him so fascinating as a character.
Yeah.
You just never really know what his true motivations are. And Colleen Hoover, she really pushes the boundaries with this book, too, especially when it comes to the whole idea of motherhood.
You mean with Verity's confessions about how she felt about her kids?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's some heavy stuff, right? To admit to those kinds of feelings.
Yeah, it definitely challenges the whole, idealized image of motherhood.
For sure. And it makes you think about those societal expectations that are placed on women and how sometimes those expectations can be really damaging.
It's like she's saying, hey, not all mothers are these perfect, nurturing figures.
Right.
And their marriage, too. It's so messed up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about a dysfunctional relationship.
It makes you wonder, like, was there ever any real love there?
It's hard to tell. You see the glimpses of, the early days when they were first falling in love.
Yeah.
But then as the story goes on, it just becomes this twisted web of secrets and manipulation.
It's kind of heartbreaking, in a way.
It is. It shows how, communication can break down, trust can erode, and love can turn into something really ugly.
And then there's the attraction between Lowen and Jeremy, which just throws another wrench in everything.
Right. I mean, are they genuinely drawn to each other, or is it just this shared trauma they're experiencing?
Or maybe they're just both looking for an escape from their own reality.
Yeah, it's like they're clinging to each other for dear life in this sea of crazy.
I think Hoover does a good job of capturing that complexity.
Mm-hmm.
How even in the darkest of situations, people can still find connection.
Absolutely. It's a very human thing to crave intimacy, especially when you're feeling vulnerable.
But their relationship is built on such a shaky foundation.
Right. I mean, it's all based on secrets
Yeah.
and maybe even delusion.
And it makes you question, where does that leave Verity?
Hmm.
Is she really just a victim? Or is she somehow orchestrating everything from behind the scenes?
I think that's the question that keeps you up at night after reading this book.
It does. Because you're never really sure who to believe. It's like Hoover wants us to be just as suspicious as Lowen is,
Exactly.
to question everyone's motives, to consider all the different angles.
And that's what makes Verity so powerful. It forces you to confront the fact that sometimes there are no easy answers. The truth can be really messy and complicated. How did you ultimately interpret the ending, knowing what you know about the characters?
I think that's what makes it so hard to shake off. It's like, even after you finish the book, you're still trying to puzzle it out in your head.
It's designed that way. It's meant to stay with you. It makes you think about the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others and how much of it is, actually true.
And the way she builds the suspense is so subtle. It's not like, jump scares or anything.
No.
It's this psychological tension that just keeps ratcheting up. It's almost like you're holding your breath the whole time you're reading.
And that's what's so effective about it. It gets under your skin, You start to question your own perceptions, like, maybe I'm not seeing things clearly either.
It makes you realize how much we rely on other people to validate our reality. And how easily we can be manipulated, especially when we're already feeling vulnerable.
Exactly. Verity is like this master manipulator. She knows how to push people's buttons, how to exploit their weaknesses. And it's terrifying because you realize that could be anyone.
It could be someone in your own life, someone you trust. And
Right.
that's what makes it so unsettling. It's like Hoover is holding up a mirror to us, saying, look, this is the dark side of human nature. This is what we're capable of.
And that lack of resolution at the end, it's almost like she's saying, I'm not going to give you the answers. You have to figure it out for yourself, which I think is really brave as a writer.
It's like she's trusting us, the readers, to grapple with those complexities,
Yeah.
to come to our own conclusions about what's real and what's not. And that's what makes it such a powerful reading experience.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Verity, I think we're left with this question. What would you have done if you were in Lowen's shoes?
Right. Faced with all those unsettling truths, would you have believed Verity's confessions? Or would you have dismissed them as the ramblings of a, mentally unstable person?
Would you have trusted Jeremy? Would you have given in to that attraction? It's a lot to think about.
And that's what makes this book so compelling. It's not just a thriller. It's a psychological puzzle that makes you question everything you thought you knew about truth, deception, and the human heart.
It definitely makes you think twice about the people around you.
It does. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Verity and that ending.
And be sure to check out our next deep dive, where we'll be tackling another thought-provoking book that's sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. Until then, happy reading.